There's been a lot of broad Google algorithm updates over the last year or two, and it's typically always the same that's happening. A lot of people are screaming and kicking about this, and I'm a part of the AdThrive forum and also other online forums and Facebook forums, Facebook groups, and people are reacting to this like crazy, so I just wanted to address this in a video. As you guys know, I'm not too worried about the Google core updates because I'm not doing any shady SEO tactics, I'm not doing link building and stuff like that. So typically all my sites are always doing just fine. It's typically always the same thing happening when there's these broad updates. You know, my sites are growing with traffic every week, and then when there's a broad Google core update, it's just plateauing for a while, as I told you guys in a recent video, one of my Q&A videos. So that's what's happening, and after a month or two, it just continues to climb. So I'm pretty sure that what's happening here is just that Google is stealing a bit more traffic with snippets and other clever search result page features to try to keep people on the Google results page. So that means that instead of continuing to climb, we'll see sort of a plateau for a while. So the reason why the traffic is not dipping and then starting to climb immediately is because Google is always rolling out these broad updates over a couple of weeks because there's a ton of servers they need to roll this out on worldwide. And I also suspect that there might be some algorithmic steps, I suppose you can say, so it's not rolled out like this. It might be specific steps that they need to roll out one after another. And I've been running these theories by some of my publisher friends with a ton of traffic as well, and they seem to agree with me that this is what's happening. There's something else I'm also seeing for some of my newer sites, and I mean a lot of newer sites that I'm also working with. It seems like if you have a brand new site, sometimes you'll get stuck for a little longer time than just a month or two. But don't sweat about it, because eventually your site will continue growing if you're not in the YMYL space, if you're not writing about health related or financial related or political stuff, or stuff where people really want experts to write about it. So if you're just writing good content on a pretty regular topic, you'll do just fine. But sometimes these smaller sites or new sites, if you're only seeing like 100 page views per week or per month, whatever, if it's a brand new site, if it's only a couple of months old, sometimes it seems like you'll get stuck for a longer period of time, maybe 3 or 4 months, and that's very frustrating. I don't know why that is. It's just something that I'm seeing again and again. But I'm also almost always seeing people starting to get more traffic after a little while. So I'm just trying to calm you guys down, because I know this can be super stressful when you're just starting to see this first drips of traffic on your site, and then all of a sudden Google hits you with a Google core update and you feel like all is lost. It's not. You just need to be patient, and eventually your site will start to take off. That's my experience, and that's what I'm seeing when I'm starting out new sites and Google come out with these broad updates. I have a site in a pretty tiny niche that I started like 10 or 12 years ago. I think it was 12 years ago. So it's an old site, and it's just been sitting there like clockwork, earning me money every month. So it's a tiny site. It only has like 30 or 40 articles on it, and I would have a hard time coming up with more topics because it's just a very tiny niche. And it's very funny about this site because over these last broad core updates, it seems like Google is hammering it, and it's getting back up again, and it's hammered and it gets back up. So when you see the graph in Google Search Console, when you look at the impressions and the clicks, so what's this? It's like it's just getting up and down and up and down. So I didn't do a lot of link building on this site, so it's definitely not getting hammered from having bad links pointing to it. So it has to do with the content on this site. And this actually showed me a bit about how Google is working and how sort of you can be on the edge of getting in or out of Google. And I would say this is thin, pretty low quality content. I wrote it a long time ago, and some of it was written by other writers, and I didn't pay a lot for it. It was sort of a test I just did to see if I could rank this site. And I'm actually very surprised that it's still ranking, because it's very old content in this, and as I said, it's not that good. And I mean, if that site is sort of on the edge of what's accepted into Google, you'll do just fine with all the content that you're writing when you're trying to craft the best articles you can. Because there are other sites on this topic. It's not like I'm the only one in this niche. And since I'm walking the edge here with Google, if I'm in or out, you'll do just fine, let me tell you that. And this site also shows me exactly what you can do with a clean site, because I'm pretty sure if I hit it with a lot of backlinks, it would not stand the test of time, because this is a very clean site in terms of SEO. I just put the articles there and it doesn't have a ton of spammy backlinks to it. And I think that's why it's surviving in Google. And this site has actually earned me more than $100,000 over 10 years. So it's just earning a little bit of money every month, and I'm very happy about it. It's still doing alright, but it seems like right now it's at a point where Google is smart enough to figure out that this is not brilliant content. So this is not what I'm advising you to do. Remember, this is a site I built a long time ago. I've been doing this for more than a decade, so I have a lot of sites in my portfolio. And I mean, when they're making money, I'm just happy. And it's also funny to me to see when a site gets hammered, when it's just not as good like this site here. So having a pretty large portfolio of sites, I mean, I have sites that are 10 years old, sites that I started a couple of months ago. I have huge sites with 500,000 page views per month and more. I think I have a pretty good idea about what's happening with these broad core updates, and I wouldn't worry at all. I mean, if you're just crafting good content, you're not doing anything shady, you're not building a lot of backlinks to your sites, you're just letting links roll in naturally as you're starting to rank in Google with these underserved topics that you start out with on your site, you'll do just fine. So don't get scared about this. I mean, Google will continue to steal or keep some of the traffic on Google. I mean, that's their business strategy for sure. And it does make sense because they're also here to make money, right? I'm definitely not saying that I think they're not getting greedy. I think they should send us more traffic, of course. But that's how it is. We have to play the Google game if we're doing content websites. But don't sweat about it. Just keep crafting good content. So with all these updates, I also think Google is testing your authority and how good your content is. I think they're just getting better at figuring out what is a good article and what is a low quality article, and what website is having more authority and what website is having less authority. So when it comes to good content, I have a lot of guidelines for you on how to craft the best possible content. And another tip I have for you, in order to get traffic from Google and in order to survive these Google core updates, make sure that you're not writing content where you're answering very, very basic questions that can sort of only be answered with a yes or no or a very short sentence. Because if the searcher or the people looking for your content and doing these searches in Google is seeing the full answer in the featured snippet, I mean, why should they click onto your website? So you need to make sure that there's something more that you can hide inside the article other than these couple of lines that Google can put in the featured snippet. So we can do that in a couple of ways. First, I would advise you to stay away from topics that's just super simple answers, like what color is something. Stuff like that is just too basic. I mean, even though if you could craft 1,300 words about it, nobody would click onto your article because you're not really offering any value to the reader. So avoid these topics. And then you also need to make sure that when you're crafting the headline, this is actually what people are seeing below the snippet if you win the snippet, which you should. Make sure that the headline is enticing so people want to click onto your site, so that they know that there's something more if they click on this article. So there's different ways to go about this. Whenever I'm trying to grab the snippet for something where I know Google will feature a list, I know that they will typically put 6, 7 or 8 points in that list. So I make sure to always make my headline something like 15 best tips to, or 18 ways to, or something like that. So the reader will know that if they click on the headline and actually goes to my article and not just reads the snippet, they will get more than what Google is offering in the snippet. That's one way to do it. You can also just try to really write an enticing title to make sure that people will want to click. Show them that you have a complete guide or you have the best tips to, or whatever. So don't stick with a sort of generic headline. Don't just copy paste the question that you found in Google then that you want to write on. Make sure to write it in an enticing way, and of course craft the best possible answer for people so they do stay on your site when they get there. So show early on in the article that you have more than what's listed in the featured snippet. And of course this will also result in more traffic to your site, not just because more people want to read more than the snippet, but because if you have a great title, regardless of where it shows up in the Google results page, more people will click to your site. So I would say if you want to SEO optimize your site, pay a lot of attention to your titles. I mean, pay close attention to titles wherever you see them on the web. If you're browsing Facebook or wherever you're browsing, if you're doing Google searches, whenever you come across a pretty clever title, take notes in a little notebook or put it on your phone or whatever, take a picture of it, just remember it because you might want to get inspired from or sort of copy paste that title into your own topic at a later point in time. I try to collect all the best titles I find. Whenever I want to click on search result number 6, 7 or 8, it's because they did something awesome with the title. So when I do that, I try to pay close attention to exactly what they're doing so I can copy that and do the same thing across my own sites. I have a lot of tips about this in my upcoming course where I show you how to craft the best titles. But really, it's not like you cannot do this on your own. You can totally just go browse the web and see whenever you get some really good inspiration, just make sure to remember it and really play around with the titles. Historic actually did a tool recently where they let you compare two different titles. So they will sort of change the title and you can have this title that you published with the article and then you can put in another headline that Google will use as a meta title. And over time it will tell you if this one is performing better. So that's a tool you can check out if you want to play around with it. But I mean, for me personally, I'm pushing so much content and I would say I don't think it's worth my time now that I'm publishing 60 or 80 articles per month to play around with this. I spend my time just crafting more content and I just make sure that I have great titles. So it takes time and it's an art. So it does take time to learn this and there's definitely an art to it. It's something you need to learn, but you get good at this by practicing. So take a look in Google Analytics and Google Search Console at what topics and what titles are sending you the most traffic and see where you're doing the really good job with the CTR, the click-through rate that is. And you can get inspired from yourself as well because that's data that only you have access to. So subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you guys next time. If you guys want to follow our travels around, you can follow my wife's Instagram account. I'll put the URL here. I'm not on Instagram, actually. I have a profile, but I don't want to be active on it. I want to spend my time around Maria and Max, and I don't want him to grow up with a dad looking at the phone all the time. So I'm not on Facebook or Instagram too much and all of that. I would just spend my time doing these videos. But you can follow some of our travels there, and I'll see you guys next time.